My childhood friend thinks I'm too long-winded and not manly enough. She told me to learn how to be like a campus ruler, the kind of guy who's a bit of a rebel. Little did I know, the campus ruler turned his attention to my mouth. Thinking deeply, he frowned and said, "I heard you can talk so much you could make a mute person speak." Then he asked me to harass his autistic sister. His sister would give me $1,000 for every sentence she spoke, but that campus ruler was still too naive. An evil cultivator has their own methods. I walked to the back row of the classroom, gently knocked on the desk of his autistic sister, and said, "Won't you explain to everyone about what happened last night? About you licking my feet while I was asleep?" She widened her eyes, and a crack appeared on her icy face. She replied, "I didn't." I confidently turned around, flashed a bright smile to the campus ruler, and said, "Pay up." The moment I finished speaking, the entire classroom fell into a dead silence. The gloomy girl who had been keeping her head down in the corner slowly widened her eyes, and a crack appeared on her icy face. She bit her lip and said, "I didn't." The campus ruler quickly stepped forward, his eyes filled not with disgust, but with deep admiration. I thought he was just joking, but to my surprise, without a word, he transferred the money to me. As he transferred the money, the so-called campus ruler, who could supposedly kill without blinking, was shaking. He held my hand as if he had found a lifeline. He said, "Master, please save my sister." He told me that his parents had taken Willow to see countless psychologists, both domestic and international, and the answer was always the same. The best solution is to find a peer who can make her feel the beauty of this age. But Willow hated anyone coming close to her except family. At our age, it's all about face, and no one wanted to take on the troublesome task of dealing with a temperamental princess like Willow. The campus ruler said, "Here's the deal. If you pester her more and get her to say even one more word, I'll give you an extra 1,000. The campus ruler held my hand as if he had seen his savior. I held his hand, looking at the $1,000 as if I were seeing a living bodhisattva delivering money. I smiled. Isn't it just harassment? I'm good at this. From elementary school to now, I've always been considered a reincarnation of a fly in the eyes of my teachers. In elementary school, to make me shut up, the homeroom teacher even made me sit next to a hearing-impaired classmate. Later, I learned sign language and secretly chatted with my desk mate under the desk. My hands moved as fast as if I were making hand signs like Naruto, flipping with such speed it was terrifying. When my deskmate got excited, his fingers nearly cramped up. The teacher contacted my mom and told her that I could talk to anyone, even a dog on the street, and suggested she take me to see a doctor. This was tailor-made for me, especially since Willow is so pretty. I turned to look at Willow. Willow had only said a few words, then lowered her head again. She seemed frustrated with herself for speaking involuntarily and was now protesting by keeping her head down. Sophia, who had been completely ignored, leaned over. She saw me take the money from the campus ruler and immediately tried to grab my phone. She said disapprovingly, "George, Truman does not eat food thrown at him. Besides, our focus should be on studying now. You should stop hanging out with shady people." The campus ruler, who had just been her crush, turned around, his expression cold and distant, returning to his normal self. He asked in a deep, deliberate voice, "Who are you calling shady?" Sophia choked and immediately fell silent, biting her lip. And I pulled her hand away. I realized then that Sophia only dared to boss me around. Sophia seemed like she wanted to say something else, but just then the bell for class rang, and I turned and returned to my seat. That day, the campus ruler used his money power to make sure I sat next to Willow. He said, "Teacher, my sister is here to make friends. George would be perfect for her. The weather's getting hotter. I think we should install air conditioning in the school." The teacher fell silent. When I moved to sit next to Willow, she was still lying on the desk asleep. Sophia turned her head slightly to look at me, her gaze as if she were trying to burn a hole through me. I stared at Willow's neck for the whole class. She's clearly awake, but to avoid sitting at the same table with me, she doesn't even lift her head. How interesting. After the second class ended, I leaned close to Willow's ear and whispered, "Hee hee. Willow, do you know your neck is so white, like a duck's neck? I just want to bite." Maybe I was too close, as Willow jumped in surprise, immediately looking at me with a horrified expression. I quickly snapped a photo of her face with my phone and sent it to her brother. "This doesn't look like an autistic kid, does it? Isn't it pretty interesting?" That little expression was more vivid than mine. But after the next few classes, I realized how difficult Willow was to deal with. No matter what I said, she remained like a statue, completely still. By the time the school bell rang, I was dry-mouthed from talking, but still interested, because no one has ever listened to me talk so much without calling me an idiot. Even if I don't make money from this, I found a kindred spirit. I watched Willow's slender, fair fingers slowly close her textbook and sneered. I said, "So what were you playing at during English class?" Willow's fingers stiffened, and she glanced at me before turning towards the door. I grabbed my backpack and hurried to catch up. Her brother had told me earlier that their family's driver would take me home today. Someone yanked my backpack, and I nearly rolled my eyes in frustration as I turned around to see Sophia standing behind me, her face dark with anger. She puffed up in irritation and said, "She doesn't even want to talk to you, and you're still trying to lick up to her, George? How shameless can you be?" This was the second time today. Even though she was the goddess I had secretly admired for a long time, I couldn't tolerate her insulting me repeatedly. I lifted my backpack and swung it hard into her face. Sophia stared at me in shock, and I snapped, "Are you fucking crazy? When I act like a dog licking you, you're fine with it. But when I'm doing the same to someone else, suddenly I'm shameless. What's wrong? Just because it's you, you deserve to be licked? Same thing, can't I change the flavor? And what did you say this morning? Telling everyone I'm disgusting and low-class for talking dirty to a girl." I laughed angrily because I hadn't even wanted to deal with this. She said that because I had shared a naked video with her and left some suggestive comments. However, she was the one who kept sharing videos of men with abs and commenting things like, "That kind of man is worthy of me taking off my high-waisted underwear," and stuff like, "Where's true heart for heart? Only speed changes voice. Other people's kids have already bought paper. Your kid is still on the paper," and a bunch of other raunchy comments I couldn't even repeat. I thought she was into it and liked seeing those comments, so I spent nights researching how to talk dirty. I started sharing similar videos, just hoping she'd pay more attention to me. But when she does it, it's fine. When I do it, it's disgusting. She's so hard to please. If she loves it so much, she can go to hell for all I care. I shoved her away and quickly ran after Willow, who was almost out of sight. I called out, "Willow, why aren't you waiting for me?" Willow, of course, didn't answer. I turned and looked at the nearby convenience store, then commanded, "Stop. Don't move." To my surprise, she actually stood still. I walked around her in a circle, then said, "Wait. Wait for me. I'm going to buy something, or I'll tell your brother about you stealing a kiss from me." Willow looked at me, and this time she didn't seem as shocked as this morning, but her peach blossom eyes still looked at me in confusion. When I came out with an iced lolly from the convenience store, I saw Willow standing obediently by the trash can. TSK, I squinted my eyes. I thought I liked the lively type like Sophia. How come someone as gloomy and obedient as Willow, a Yandere, is so cute too? I ate my ice cream while thinking and finally came to a conclusion. I don't have a specific type. I'm just plainly lustful. I shoved an iced lolly into Willow's hand, but she didn't take it. It fell to the ground with a slap. She continued walking ahead, and I quickly picked it up and rushed to catch up, shoving it back into her hand. It fell again. I was getting mad. This little brat. I caught up in a few steps, grabbed her clenched hand, and Willow finally stopped pretending to be calm. She took a deep breath and stepped back, her face turning bright red. I grinned and handed the iced lolly to her. She took it. We walked side by side, but Willow still didn't eat the iced lolly, just holding it in her hand. So I leaned closer and whispered to her, "No need to be shy. I won't tell anyone about the fart you quietly let out earlier." Willow broke the iced lolly and shoved it into her mouth, speeding up her steps. See, when people feel embarrassed, they always pretend to be busy drinking when there's water, sucking on an iced lolly when there's one. I watched Willow slowly lick the iced lolly and suddenly had an idea. "Willow, do you know that crushed ice can cool you down? In the village, when it's hot, they prepare some for cows suffering from heat stroke. So don't go picking up random crushed ice from the ground to eat." Willow stopped eating and put the iced lolly down, her lips now red from the cold. She quietly stared at me. It seemed like I really had no more tricks up my sleeve with her. I felt a little awkward, realizing that this topic might have been a bit gross. I was about to change the subject when Willow spoke the second sentence of the day. She frowned and said, "It's a pig." I froze for a moment, then overjoyed, responded, "Right, it's a pig. I remembered it wrong." Willow, we really have a lot in common. You watch these kinds of low IQ videos too? I had thought that Willow, the autistic girl, didn't surf the internet, but apparently she was also a pro at it. I was elated. I had really found a kindred spirit in life. After getting out of the luxury car, I waved goodbye enthusiastically to the campus ruler, but when I turned around, I almost had a heart attack. Sophia was standing at the top of the stairs, her eyes cold as ice. She frowned and said, "Does your mom know you're getting so close to a girl who's obviously sick in the head?" I handed her the extra ice lolly I had bought. Sophia's expression softened a little, and she reached out to take it, but still couldn't stop talking. She said, "Willow's the kind of person with a mental illness. Do you think everyone's as nice as me? I've had to deal with you yelling since we were kids. My brain's almost falling apart." The next second, I forcefully crushed the now melted ice lolly in my hand and slapped it straight into her face. She screamed and staggered back 2 steps, and the motion sensor light on the stairs lit up. Sophia's face turned red, and she glared at me fiercely. She bit her lip and said, "Are you crazy?" I pulled out a tissue to wipe my fingers as I walked past her. I said, "You're talking about someone being sick? I think you're the most messed up one here." Sophia turned around, but by then I had already turned and climbed up the 2nd flight of stairs. Next day, during break, I asked to add Willow on WeChat, and for once she actually acknowledged me. She said no. I picked up my phone to take a picture of her, and she frowned and swatted my hand away. I reached out to grab her phone. She recoiled in terror, as if I was going to assault her, quickly taking 2 steps back. Just as we were bickering, Sophia knocked on my desk. She said, "George, I won't hold last night against you. My mom's making sweet and sour ribs tonight. Let's go home together after school." I stopped tormenting Willow and gave Sophia a sideways glance. Is she crazy? Did she not understand what I said yesterday? I couldn't be bothered to deal with her. I turned around and realized Willow had already gotten up and walked out of the classroom. I took a deep breath and quickly followed her outside. Willow was standing at the classroom door, just standing there like a dazed goose, not moving. I figured she probably wanted to avoid me, but didn't know where to go. Her brain probably overheated. I found it amusing and reached out to poke her, saying, "Hey, seriously, not adding me on WeChat?" She didn't respond, just continued standing there in a daze until the class bell rang. I said, "Hey, the teacher's coming." I tugged at her sleeve, but Willow remained frozen. "You too, what are you doing standing here?" The music teacher frowned. I glanced at the dazed Willow and then looked back at the music teacher. I said, "Teacher, Willow's stomach hurts. She's about to poop herself." Willow's pupils trembled slightly, surprised by my random fabrication. The teacher waved her hand, telling me to take her to the infirmary. I have no musical sense, but I managed to escape from music class purely because Willow looked like the perfect little angel in the teacher's eyes. She was dragged along like a rock by me, and as we passed a window, I caught sight of Sophia, her face dark with anger. I asked Willow, "Have you never skipped class before?" I pried open her tightly clenched hand, feeling her warm palm against mine. A twinge of itchiness passed through me, and I shamelessly slipped my hand into hers. She didn't pull away. I dragged her through the small alley by the school gates and found our favorite noodle shop. The owner happily served up a bowl of noodles. The owner asked, "Bringing a friend? Isn't it class time?" I smiled brightly and replied, "Yeah, we're skipping class." Willow's breath caught. She raised her hand to cover my mouth. Looking so terrified, she probably wished she could swallow my words back. I couldn't help but laugh. Who invented Willow, this little thing? So cute. She was totally hitting my sweet spot. I brought over 2 small bowls. I said, "You have half, I have half, and the feelings won't fade." Willow frowned as she stared at the noodles, but didn't say anything. I thought she was disgusted by me, but to my surprise, she handed me her phone. I understood what she meant. She was saying she had money, and we could each buy our own bowl. I was speechless. The truth was, I couldn't finish the noodles anyway. I had already eaten 3 jean of buns for breakfast. There was no way I could eat a whole bowl. Taking advantage of the moment, I grabbed her phone and added myself on WeChat. Willow paused, but didn't stop me. Willow ate gracefully. Even the most ordinary bowl of noodles seemed refined in her hands. When the meal was over, I wiped my mouth and pulled her to turn around and run. Willow was dazed, stumbling as she tried to keep up until I finally turned around after running out of the alley. The expression in her eyes was full of disbelief. It seemed like she had never done something so rebellious before. Her heartbeat was quick. I could even hear it when we stood face to face. She bit her lip, pulling me to go back, but I stopped in my tracks, acting indifferent, and said, "We already skipped, no need to go back." How embarrassing. Willow pressed her lips together, staring at me in silence. She wasn't angry. Her eyes were filled with grievance, but there was still a trace of determination to stick to her principles. I smiled mischievously and said, "You can go back, but you'll have to tell the owner. Sorry, we came to pay. Then I'll go back with you." Willow stood at the alley entrance, hesitating for a full 5 minutes before finally giving in, reluctantly taking my hand and heading back. The owner was wiping down the table, and when he saw us standing there like statues at the door, I nudged her and said, "Say something." Willow's palm was covered in tiny beads of sweat, and her cheeks were flushed red. I thought she was about to give up, but the next second I heard Willow's cool, distinct voice, stammering as she said, "Sorry, boss, we came to pay." The owner was stunned. She picked up a cloth and wiped her hands, looking at me with confusion as she asked, "What?" I couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed so hard I nearly couldn't stand up. I have WeChat with the owner, and every time I just transfer money directly. I also asked Willow to take the day off from the homeroom teacher, but Willow, being a bit naive, leaves whatever I say. Willow seemed a bit unhappy. She moved her lips and, without saying anything, turned and started walking back. I chased after her, babbling nonstop. "Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted you to talk a little more. Willow, your voice is really nice. Can you talk more often?" I said, "Willow, repeat after me. George is really handsome. I like George." Willow's cheeks turned even redder, and she suddenly stopped. She turned her head, looked at me for 2 seconds, and spat out a few words with annoyance. "You're shameless." I couldn't hold back a laugh. I said, "Willow, your voice really is nice." She'd said that, yet I kept laughing. She probably had never met someone with such thick skin before. Willow decided to ignore me, huffing in anger as she continued walking ahead. That night, Campus Ruler transferred 10,000 U to me. He said, "Willow talked at home today. She asked me, 'Why do Dad's shoes smell so bad?' Master, you're the lucky star of our whole family." I collapsed onto the bed, imagining Willow frowning, which was just too cute. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Willow, but just then the phone rang. Annoyed, I hung up. Sophia again. After blocking her call and WeChat, she started calling me from her mom's phone. Sophia and I live across the hall from each other, and her mother is really nice to me. She's good friends with my mom. No matter how rebellious I get, I can't bring myself to block an elder. I scratched my head irritably and threw my phone aside. What's wrong with Sophia? Since we were kids, I've always been chasing after her, and she's never called me once. It's always been me annoying her. I opened our chat history. Almost all of it was me sending messages, while she would take forever to reply, often just with a hum or oh. Just as I was scrolling, I noticed a message from Willow. I expected her to be as cold as when we first met, but since we added each other on WeChat, Willow replies to every message I send. Although it's just 1 or 2 simple words, I felt an unprecedented sense of fulfillment on a spiritual level. She even stole my emojis to reply to me. Later, when I sent her some suggestive and inappropriate emojis, she stopped stealing them. Maybe Willow, the autistic girl, just doesn't like talking, but she's pretty enthusiastic on the internet. "Good morning, Willow," I greeted her with a smile. The aloof goddess didn't say anything, just glanced at me. I found it a bit strange. Was she unusually quiet today? The next second, I saw the breakfast on my desk. I was shocked and said, "Did you bring this for me?" Willow nodded, then shook her head and said, "My brother did." Her words were still few, but I understood. I laughed and said, "Then thank your brother for me. These soup dumplings are so hard to get." I ate with grease all over my mouth, while Willow handed me a tissue. Sophia walked up, looking irritated as she glared at me, and said, "What do you want from me? You won't answer the phone, and you won't reply to messages. You live so close, but you act like a mouse. I can't even see you." I put the bowsy on the table and replied, "If you know I'm avoiding you, then don't show up in front of me." Sophia was so angry her chest was heaving. She retorted, "You don't seriously think that a rich girl like me would be interested in a loser like you, right?" I paused chewing, and Willow stopped handing me tissues. She looked up at Sophia coldly, and I slammed my hand on the table and stood up angrily. rebuking Sophia. We're still students. How can your mind be so dirty? All you think about is love and relationships. Is that the kind of thing a student should be focused on? As a classmate, you're not thinking about helping others. But here you are trying to sow discord. Sophia opened her mouth, but I immediately cut her off. I said, or maybe you've started dating early, and that's why all you can think about is this stuff? Sophia was really pissed now, biting her lip. She said, George, I'm saying this because I consider you a good friend, but Willow, with her rich family. Before she could finish, the cold voice of our homeroom teacher came from behind. Sophia, come to my office. I almost died laughing, but when I turned around, I saw Willow staring at me intently, her eyes dark with depth. Before I could say anything, she pursed her lips and turned her head away. I rubbed my forehead. Great, the little princess is mad again. I leaned in and tried to comfort her. You really don't need help. I was wrong. It's me. I need your help. Can I copy your homework? Willow ignored me and kept nudging me with her elbow. The next second, I suddenly flicked her elbow with my finger, directly hitting her funny bone. Willow hugged her arm and bit her lip. You, what are you doing? Ouch. I said, sorry. It's just that abstract video you shared with me yesterday. I can't find it. Can you send it to me again? She snorted but still ignored me. I sighed and laid down on the table in resignation. Not 2 minutes later, my phone vibrated. I pulled it out from the desk drawer and saw Willow's transfer. She wrote, keep helping me. Our family has money. Don't talk to her. I hate her. This brother and sister's cash power. Who could resist that? I clutched my chest and without hesitation accepted the money. Campus ruler said he wanted to take me out to dinner and that his parents wanted to thank me in person. Willow had been talking more and more at home recently. Although it was just short texts, it gave them hope. I waved my hand and said, these are just small problems. Actually, Willow is quite different from regular people. On average, when I speak 100 words, she'll respond with 2 or 3, and that's already pretty good. As the summer holidays approached, I was discussing travel destinations with my friends in the next class. Having made a small profit recently, I was planning to take a trip abroad with my friends during the summer. I felt a burning gaze from my side. Turning around, I found Willow staring at my phone. Seeing she was interested, I casually opened something and asked, Willow, where would you like to go? She didn't respond, just coldly looked away. I didn't expect her to answer anyway. Then Willow's cold voice came from beside me. She asked, are you going during the summer? I replied, yeah, I'm thinking about going to the US. I casually invited, would you like to go? Willow went silent again. I kept twirling my pen and scrolled to the next video. The girl in front of me turned around excitedly, sharing with me the tourist spots she visited last year in the US. Willow seemed to say something, but it was too quick for me to hear. I turned around and found that she had already laid her head on the desk, silent. She was mad again. Recently, Willow has been getting upset for no apparent reason. I didn't know what was wrong, so I poked her twice, but she didn't respond, so I just went back to doing my own thing. Soon it was time to leave school. When I finished packing my bag and looked up, I saw Willow already packed and standing at the classroom door. She was standing outside, the sunset casting its glow on her side profile. I knew she was waiting for me. I hurried up, thinking I'd ask her later why she was upset, but the next second Sophia's face suddenly appeared in front of me, giving me a shock. I sighed and said, what do you want now? I frowned at her. Sophia casually tossed me a set of keys. She snorted and said, your mom tried calling you, but you didn't answer. She told me to let you know that they're going out for a week, and my parents will take care of you. She wants you to stay at my place. I took a deep breath and said, can't I just order takeout at home? When I looked up again, Willow had already left. I scratched my head in frustration and rushed out, but Willow was gone. I think I understood why Willow was upset now. She seemed to have a special possessiveness toward me. She'd get upset when I talked to the girl in front of me, and she'd get even angrier when I talked to Sophia. But I didn't think she was unreasonable at all. I thought it was incredibly cute. Isn't possessiveness just the start of liking someone? I kicked a stone, walking home in boredom. Recently, I had gotten so used to taking Willow's family's car that walking home again was a sudden shock. My feet really did start to hurt. I heard some rustling behind me, and when I turned around, there was nothing there. I rubbed my arms, feeling a chill, and frowned. Am I not being followed by some thug? I took a few more steps, but still there were barely noticeable footsteps behind me. I suddenly turned around, and there stood Willow, frozen. A smile flickered across my face as I walked towards her. Willow stood still, looking like she wanted to hide, but there wasn't even a trash can nearby, so her steps froze. Willow's CPU must have overheated again. I asked, "Willow, are you following me?" She averted her eyes from my face, lowered her head, and slowly walked by my side, silent. I asked, "Where's your car?" She whispered, "I sent my brother home." I asked, "Then why aren't you going back?" She remained silent again. I grinned mischievously and leaned in closer, asking, "Are you reluctant to leave me?" Willow didn't say anything. Her steps faltered a bit, and she nearly tripped over from my teasing. She bit her lip and said, "We have plenty of rooms at home." I kept talking, and by the time we reached the bottom of my building, Willow, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke up. Her voice was soft as she said, "Would you like to stay at my place?" I froze, staring at her, and asked, "What did you say?" Willow's eyes seemed to have tiny stars in them as she stared at me without repeating herself. I instantly realized she must have heard what Sophia said. I found it amusing and laughed, saying, "I'm not going to Sophia's place, don't worry." Willow's face seemed to soften a bit, and she nodded, saying, I kicked the stone by my feet and asked, "Willow, do you like me?" A flash of panic crossed Willow's face, and her loose hair covered her expression. She looked down too quickly for me to see anything clearly. I decided to just tease her, chuckling and waving my hand at her. "All right, go back now. It's truly my honor to take a walk with the young lady." Watching Willow disappear from my view, I turned to head home, but then my parents suddenly appeared in front of me, giving me a shock. I asked, "Aren't you two on a business trip?" My mom's face was serious. She said, "Your grandmother's sick. I've already asked for leave from both you and your teacher. Since you only have a week left before summer vacation, we'll head to Grandma's place directly." Grandma's place wasn't close, which meant I wouldn't be able to go to school tomorrow, so I took out my phone to message Willow and turned to follow my parents to Grandma's house. Late at night, I scrolled through my phone but still hadn't received a reply from Willow. I frowned as I scrolled up through the chat history, wondering, is she still mad? The signal in the village wasn't great, and all the messages I sent had red exclamation marks. After messing with my phone late into the night, I only managed to send 3 messages, but Willow still hadn't replied. I sighed helplessly and threw my phone aside. But on the 3rd night, in the stillness of the night, a stone suddenly fell by my window. I froze for a moment, instinctively walked over to the windowsill, and couldn't help but widen my eyes as I saw a cold, clear-eyed girl standing below. The silver moonlight illuminated her, casting a long shadow. I ran downstairs without shoes on. Willow stood by the wild grass in the countryside, her arms covered in mosquito bites, with several swollen bumps. She kept raising her hand to swat them away, her movements stiff, like a delicate wind-up doll. I found it amusing and asked, "What are you doing here?" I didn't expect her to answer, but she actually looked me in the eye and said pitifully, "I couldn't reach you." I froze for a moment and asked, "Didn't I send you a message?" She replied, "I lost my phone." She bit her lip, a flash of frustration passing through her eyes. She said, "On my way home, my phone was stolen." I felt a little sorry for her. It was probably the first time the young lady had walked home and had to deal with a pickpocket. I asked, "How did you find your way here?" She said, "I asked your friend." I was surprised. Someone like Willow, actually asking others for directions. The more I thought about it, the funnier it seemed, and I couldn't help but smile. Willow seemed a little annoyed by my laughter. She pouted and said, "I thought you were mad at me." I froze for a moment and asked, "Mad at what?" She didn't answer my question. It was rare for Willow to say so much, so I couldn't help but tease her. "Willow, with you talking so much today, I feel like kissing you." Her eyes widened as if she was upset that I interrupted her, and maybe even surprised that I would say something so shameless. But her ears were bright red. She said, "You asked me if I was reluctant to leave you. When I didn't respond, you got mad." Under the moonlight, the girl's expression was especially serious. She said, "Yes, I'm reluctant to leave you." I stood there stunned, listening to her talking to herself. This girl must have lost her mind. She seemed dissatisfied with my reaction, her pout getting higher and higher. She asked, "What about you? Are you reluctant to leave me?" I suddenly realized Willow probably thought that when I asked her that question the other night, and she didn't respond, I got mad and ignored her, So now she was anxious to catch up with me here. What kind of question was, "Are you reluctant?" Did I ever ask something like that? I had an idea and grinned. I said, "Willow, do you mean you like me and you're now asking if I like you?" Willow froze, and then I saw her face turn as red as her ears. She said yes. Her expression was just too cute. I couldn't help but want to hold her in my arms and mess with her. In fact, I did exactly that. After all, I've always been a bold person when it comes to matters like this. So I asked, "Willow, can I touch you?" I laughed mischievously. Willow, sounding a bit helpless, replied, "You already have." All right, I'll go ahead and do it first." Permission granted. I asked, "How did you get here?" She turned her head and glanced at the area not far off. I was shocked to realize that our usual driver was parked by the village entrance, covered in mosquito bites, desperately swatting them away. I couldn't help but smirk and said, "You should go back. I'll head back tomorrow too." She nodded and moved my hand away from her chest. She said, "See you tomorrow." I was overjoyed. When Willow used to say goodbye, she would just turn and leave without a word, but now she said, "See you tomorrow." Love is truly great, I thought. I didn't expect that when I got back, the first person I'd see wasn't Willow, but Sophia. She was blocking my door and asked, "Where have you been these last few days?" I couldn't be bothered to deal with her, but my parents were unusually friendly, greeting her warmly. "Sophia, George's grandmother isn't well, so we went back to the hometown. Isn't school about to start vacation? Since George can't go to school these few days, could you bring back any workbooks for us?" Sophia always acted so sweet in front of my parents. I couldn't stand her fake, over-the-top manner, so I grabbed my suitcase and turned to head inside. As soon as I walked in, the phone rang. It was Willow. She said she was downstairs. I replied, "Mom, I'm going to take out the trash." Excited, I grabbed the trash bag and rushed downstairs. Willow was squatting by the trash can, looking like a little cat abandoned by its owner. I swallowed hard. Damn, how can there be such a stunning beauty in the world, and such a stunning beauty is my girlfriend? Who could possibly understand this? I felt an overwhelming sense of emotion and rushed over in just a few steps. Willow stood up, and I quickly pulled her into my arms. She was momentarily stunned, and then a smile spread across her eyes. Willow still wasn't used to smiling. She tried to lift the corners of her lips, but it looked more like a forced, professional smile. I didn't mind. With Willow being this beautiful, even picking her nose would look stunning. I held her as I spoke, babbling about everything that happened at Grandma's house. Like before, Willow quietly listened, occasionally nodding. She still didn't talk much, but I was completely enchanted by her obedient, sweet demeanor. When I realized it was getting late, I reluctantly said goodbye to her. I leaned down and planted a light kiss on her cheek. Satisfied as I watched Willow turn as red as a boiled shrimp, I playfully slapped her on the behind and said, "All right, I'm heading back. So this is what it feels like to tease your girlfriend." But as I reached the stairs, I nearly had a heart attack. Sophia's face was dark with anger. Behind her were my parents. Willow stood not far away. Sophia's voice was low, just enough for the two of us to hear as she bit her lip and said, "George, your love is so cheap. You can give it away so quickly to someone else." I coldly stared at her. I replied, "So what? Should I keep being your shameless, spineless simp?" My parents had always known that I liked Sophia. Sophia turned to my mom and gave her a slight smile. "Auntie, it's that girl. She's tempting George into early romance." I widened my eyes in shock. My mom looked at Willow, who was walking toward us, her face pale, and frowned lightly. "Early romance? What early romance? George is already an adult, right? Then how about that girl? Is she not an adult?" I smiled and quickly replied, "She's only 1 month younger than me." My mom let out a sigh of relief, looking at Willow standing in front of us with satisfaction. "Well then, that's fine, isn't it?" Sophia, looking incredulous, said, "Auntie." I silently watched as her defense crumbled. I forgot to tell her the reason my mom liked her so much was because my mom was all about looks. In front of Willow, Sophia was completely outclassed. Willow stood behind me, politely greeting my parents. She said, "Hello, Uncle." "Hello, Auntie." My mom was absolutely thrilled, raising her eyebrows at me. "She's so beautiful." Sophia bit her lip, and in that moment she could no longer hold back her resentment. She trembled as she said, "Annie, she has a mental illness. She's a mentally ill patient, and she's autistic." The air went completely still. Willow's face turned as pale as a ghost. My blood boiled, and without a word, I stepped forward and slapped Sophia across the face. I wanted to do this for a long time, ever since the first time she insulted me, ever since she first said Willow was sick. I spoke slowly and clearly. I think the person with the problem is you. Get out. Sophia looked up, her face swollen and red, but no one spoke up for her. She gritted her teeth in anger, turned, and stormed off toward her home. Willow stood there, pale, looking a little lost. I moved in front of her, about to defend her, but she grabbed my arm, gently shook it, and took a step forward. Willow's voice trembled, even stuttering a little. She said, "Uncle, Auntie, my illness, it's almost gone. This kind of illness won't take control of me. I really like George. I'll be fine. I'll be good to George. I'll be good to him." My eyes welled up with emotion. My parents didn't say anything more. Willow walked away, her face still pale. I pulled her into my arms and took the opportunity to give her another kiss. Satisfied as I watched her turn as red as a boiled shrimp, I said, "It's okay. I'll handle things with my parents." I turned and headed back inside. My mom was sitting in the living room, rubbing her temples, saying, "George, it's not that we're against it, but dating a normal person would be much better than dating someone with psychological issues." She tried her best to be gentle about it. I knew my mom wasn't just worried about me, but also concerned about me doing something that might hurt Willow in the future. I nodded and said, "Mom, I like her. When she first met me, she could hardly say a word, and now look at her. She spoke so much to you today. I believe she'll be fine. I will love her with all my heart and treat her well." My mom nodded, and in the end, she didn't say anything more. I didn't expect Willow to act so quickly. That evening, she sent me a message. "Can you come to my house for dinner tomorrow? My parents want to meet you." Sitting in the car, I nervously dug my nails deep into the palm of my hand. Willow wrapped her hand around my arm and leaned her head on my shoulder. She wasn't good at comforting people. She told me, "You're great. My parents will agree." In a daze, I suddenly remembered her once coldly saying to me, "Shameless." For some reason, I wasn't nervous anymore. I had imagined many scenarios. For example, Willow's parents, high and mighty, glaring at me coldly. Maybe when Willow wasn't paying attention, her mom would slap a check in my face, asking me to stay away from her daughter. But when the car pulled into the driveway, I was stunned. Willow's parents stood in 2 rows with their servants, all dressed in bright red outfits, like they were attending a wedding. Campus Ruler stood in the middle, holding a huge banner that read, "Welcome the Liu family's savior, young Master George, to our humble abode." Humble abode? I twitched the corner of my mouth. This massive villa with such luxurious decoration, this was a humble abode? Willow's mother grabbed my hand, tears in her eyes. So emotional, she looked like she might kneel down. She said, "George, you must be good to our Willow. You don't know how many psychologists I've found for her, how many companions, both male and female. Those little friends can't even stay with Willow for more than a week. But you." She paused for a moment and continued, "Only someone as strong, determined, and interesting as you could open Willow's heart." I couldn't help but twitch my mouth. "Annie, what you actually meant to say was someone as shameless as me could open her heart, right?" But I wasn't upset. After all, this love was something I practically barged into and took. That night, I lay in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I suddenly received a sticker from Willow. Sneaky observation. Good grief, she's stealing my stickers again. I replied, "What's up?" Before I could even finish typing, Willow sent me a video. As soon as I opened it, I was hit by the beauty filter from the other side. Willow seemed like she had just taken a shower, with wet hair sticking to her cheek, droplets of water sliding down her forehead, flowing along her delicate jawline and collarbone, gathering in a curve on her slightly rising chest, and finally disappearing into the deep neckline of her camisole. So white. I widened my eyes, barely able to believe that this was my adorable little cat. I asked, "Willow, why aren't you wearing a jacket?" Her snow-white skin had taken on a pink hue, and she seemed extremely embarrassed. She quickly grabbed some clothes from the side and put them on. She replied, "I wanted you to see." Oh dear, this girl just says whatever is on her mind. Seeing my speechless expression, Willow looked a little lost. She said she had searched on her phone last night how to make your boyfriend like you more. He's a bit perverted. Okay, he's very perverted. AI told her that if she wanted to keep a man's heart, she had to cater to his likes. But honestly, I hadn't reacted much other than being shocked. I still hadn't spoken, since it seemed like she thought she had done something wrong. I looked into her frustrated eyes, cleared my throat, and said, "It's fine. You did well." As soon as I spoke, saliva slipped out of my mouth. The air was quiet for a moment. My face immediately turned red. No, it was just that I was in such an awkward position that the drool came out. I wasn't actually that hungry. This is so embarrassing. Willow's eyes were sparkling as she sat obediently in front of her phone, but I kept feeling like she was laughing at me. She said, "George, would you go to the US with me?" She bit her lip, looking at me cautiously. I suddenly remembered what she had said that day. I asked her if she wanted to go together, and she said, yes. Before I could say anything, she turned and walked away. I was stunned. Are we leaving now? Does it have to be this urgent? Less than a minute later, Willow reappeared on video, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling as she held something in her hand. She said, "My brother can pay." I was speechless. How should I put it? In this world, aside from beautiful women, perhaps the most alluring thing is the black card in Willow's hand. A beautiful woman with a black card. Who could resist? I cleared my throat. This damn woman really is charming. The news that I was going to travel with my girlfriend somehow reached Sophia's mother. The night before we were supposed to leave, I was packing with my back to the door when I suddenly turned around and saw Sophia. She looked a little thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept well. She quietly said, "My mom asked you to come for dinner." Seemingly afraid I would refuse, she added, "Your mom is here too." Sophia's mother had always been kind to me. Whenever my parents were on a business trip, I'd stay at Sophia's house and eat. She had also tried both openly and subtly to match me up with Sophia, but Sophia thought I was too talkative. It was an awkward eating dinner. We were all adults, but afterward, Sophia's mother brought out a huge photo album. My smile froze, and I sat uneasily. She said to my mom, "Look, this is when they used to dance together when they were kids. This one, a dog bit Sophia's butt, and George, that brave boy, pulled the dog's tail while biting it." I was speechless, and Sophia's face looked even worse. My mom sat by, smiling faintly, but no one said anything. Sophia's mother seemed a little embarrassed. She said, "In the blink of an eye, both of them have grown up. George has always been so considerate towards Sophia since they were little. I always thought that she'd definitely marry him. But look at this. In the blink of an eye, they've started having conflicts. Sophia hasn't smiled at home in days. George, you should talk to Sophia more often when you have the time." I took a deep breath and slowly stood up. I said, "Auntie, if there's nothing else, I'll head back." She didn't say anything, just watched me leave in silence. As soon as I stepped out, I was startled by someone standing at the door, nearly jumping out of my skin. The motion sensor light hadn't turned on yet, and there was Willow squatting at my doorstep, looking like a little cat abandoned by its owner. I asked, "What are you doing here?" I nervously glanced behind me, relieved that Sophia hadn't followed. Otherwise, Willow's pretty face would have been squished again. Willow looked up at me with a pitiful expression and said, "You didn't pick up your phone." I awkwardly scratched my head. I had been so focused on eating that I forgot about the phone. Willow's eyes were a bit red, and she stared at me steadily. "So you came all the way here in the middle of the night?" Just as the motion sensor light turned off, she suddenly threw herself into my arms. Her voice trembled as she said, "I'm scared." I blinked, confused by what she meant, but Willow held me so tightly that I couldn't break free. I had no choice but to reach up and gently stroke her hair, like petting a little cat. In the dimly lit stairwell, I thought I heard a door open behind me, only for it to quickly shut again. I gently pushed Willow away, sighing as I said, "What are you afraid of? Are you worried I won't go with you tomorrow, or that I'll change my mind after just one meal?" Willow's eyes were wet, and she bit her lip, not saying anything. I reached up and pinched the sides of her mouth, turning it into a circle, and said, "Talk." She quietly said, "You've liked her for a long time, but you haven't liked me for long." I cupped Willow's face in my hands, gently kneading her cute face like dough. I said, "Beautiful, do you ever look in the mirror? Please don't use this breathtakingly beautiful face to act self-conscious, okay? It's too much of a cheat. I'll start thinking, thinking about things." Willow blinked, and the flesh on her face squished together, looking like a cartoon character. She asked, "What does thinking about things mean?" I cleared my throat, deciding not to corrupt her right now. I'll teach her gradually through experience. I didn't explain, and Willow didn't press further. She nodded obediently and followed me home to pack. She could always ask AI at night. AI knew a lot. When my mom walked in, she saw Willow packing while I sat with my legs crossed, talking nonstop. I said, "You don't really need to bring this, do you? What's the point of that? We need to travel light and only bring what's useful." I added, "The SpongeBob that squirts water, definitely bring that." Willow was getting a bit frustrated, flipping through her things and repacking, taking things out, and putting them back like an NPC. My mom said, "Don't bully her." My mom seemed a bit speechless, and Willow flashed a smile at her. "Hello, Auntie." My mom looked at her, hesitating to say something, but then gave up, seeing that Willow seemed to be enjoying herself. After returning from the US, Willow became even more clingy. She would either want to meet up or call me every day, and even if she didn't say anything, she just wanted to watch me. If it were someone else, they'd have probably gone crazy by now. But me, I'm the type who talks nonstop, and in my mom's words, Willow and I are like the perfect match. What pot fits what lid? Not long after Sophia moved away, I was talking to Willow on the phone while walking out of the house. My dad asked me to go downstairs and take out the trash, but when I opened the door, I ran into Sophia, who was in the middle of moving things. I froze for a moment. She seemed to have lost quite a bit of weight. Her gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds, and there was a sadness in her eyes that I couldn't quite read. I grabbed the trash and started walking downstairs. Suddenly, I heard Sophia's voice from behind. "George." I turned around. Sophia stood at the top of the stairs, high up, just like how I had often looked up to her. But something seemed different this time. She lowered her head slightly, her voice trembling as she said, "I'm sorry. If I had faced my feelings sooner, if I hadn't said those harsh words to you, would you still have continued liking me?" I smiled and shook my head, then turned and walked downstairs. On the phone, Willow's voice dropped a little. She said angrily, "You promised me. You weren't supposed to talk to her." I clicked my tongue. I said, "I haven't said anything, have I?" She took a deep breath and said, "You shook your head." How did she know? Why does she care about that? I widened my eyes. Has Princess Willow gotten a little too spoiled lately? I suddenly remembered that not long after we started sitting together, she transferred me some money. She told me not to talk to Sophia. At that time, she barely paid attention to me. So why would she make such a request? I asked Willow, "When did you start liking me?" I thought she wouldn't answer this question, but after a couple of seconds of silence, her voice softened with a smile. She said, "From the first moment I looked up at you when the sunlight fell on the desk. I suddenly wanted to speak to you.